The honourable member for Medicine Meadowlark, Colvin and Highlands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The closer I look at the lucrative sole-sourced untendered Navigator contract, the more concerned I get. Does the government completely lack judgment, or does it intentionally reward members of the PC family? Maybe it's both. $250,000 contract for crisis communications that allegedly began on July 18, 2013, but it wasn't even signed until October 28th, just 3 days before it expired. To the Premier, the only crisis that existed when the contract was signed was your upcoming leadership race. Why did you waste $250,000 of taxpayers' money?
Honourable Minister of Municipal Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I believe the honourable member is referring to some contracts that were provided under a sole source mechanism in the crisis of the flood of last summer. That includes Trevita, includes Navigator, includes Norex, it includes Stantec. I can assure you, Mr. Speaker, that when the minister responsible for this program, for responding on behalf of Albertans, reached out. He reached out for talented Class A organizations that could step up and support the province of Alberta to meet the needs of Albertans in a crisis, and they served them well.
First up, the belt.
Mr. Speaker, the contracts represented by the Minister of Municipal Affairs were given by Executive Council. Navigator and his contract staff list is a who's who of Toryland. It's headed by a person the Premier calls a friend, managed by a guy who ran the last 2 PC election campaigns, includes an advisor to the current Premier and predecessor, and then there's the Minister of Health's former Chief of Staff and the then Minister of Municipal Affairs, PC Leadership Campaign Advisor to the Premier or the Minister. Is the real reason you didn't tender out this $250,000 contract is because you wanted to keep it in the PC family?
Honourable Minister of Municipal Affairs.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the work by Navigator related to the floods included strategic communications advice, research on flood recovery, a communication strategy. Albertans were asking. In fact, the associate ministers were on the ground, and they clearly identified a strong need for communications, clear communications to people who were in need, in crisis, responding to the flood. We responded with people we knew could deliver on behalf of Albertans, and they did that.
That makes sense.
Final supplemental.
Mr. Speaker, they delivered all right. $250,000 of worth of their taxpayer money to their buddies. At first glance, I thought Navigator's $250,000 contract was for 3 months' worth of work, and I thought that was pretty rich. But if you go by when it was actually signed to when it was allegedly completed, it works out to $250,000 for 3 days of work. That's $83,000, $333.33 per day. One of the contractual obligations was to file weekly activity reports to the minister. Will you please table those reports today, or do you need some time to backnote those as well?
Honourable Minister of Municipal Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, this work was done in the middle of a very difficult circumstance in support of the Public Affairs Bureau. They provided advice to the Public Affairs Bureau. As we all recall, many very talented people within the Government of Alberta were fully deployed. They were throughout the flood-affected areas. They were out there working with Albertans, helping them to recover, and this enabled them to help ensure that Albertans were also well informed as a result.